My name is Catherine Walsh, and I'm 62 years old. For 7 months, I was dying, and no one could figure out why. Not the doctors, not my specialists, not even the Mayo Clinic. What I didn't know was that someone in my own home was slowly killing me, and the reason why would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. I live in Portland, Oregon, in the same house my late husband James and I bought 30 years ago. James passed away from a heart attack 2 years ago, and I'll be honest, those first months alone were the hardest of my life. We'd been married for 38 years. He was my best friend, my partner in everything. When he died, I felt like half of me died too. But I wasn't completely alone. My daughter, Rebecca, was there for me. She'd call every day, come over every weekend. Rebecca is 40 years old, married to a man named Todd, and they have 2 kids, my beautiful grandchildren, Emma and Liam. For a while, Rebecca's support was the only thing keeping me going. She'd remind me to eat, to take my medications for blood pressure and cholesterol, to get out of the house. I don't know what I would have done without her. About 10 months ago, Rebecca came to me with a proposition. She and Todd were having financial difficulties. Todd had lost his job as a sales manager, and they were struggling to keep up with their mortgage. They were facing foreclosure. Rebecca cried when she told me. She said they had nowhere else to turn. "Mom," she said, tears streaming down her face, "I hate to ask, but could we move in with you? Just temporarily, until Todd finds work and we get back on our feet. We can't lose our house, and if we could just save up for a few months." I didn't hesitate. This was my daughter, my only child. Of course I said yes. Within 2 weeks, Rebecca, Todd, and the kids had moved into my 4-bedroom house. The kids took the guest rooms upstairs, and Rebecca and Todd took the converted basement suite. It was crowded, sure, but I loved having the house full of life again. The kids' laughter reminded me of when Rebecca was young. At first, everything seemed fine. Todd was actively job hunting, sending out dozens of applications a week. Rebecca took over most of the cooking, which I appreciated. My arthritis had been making it harder to stand at the stove for long periods. She'd make these wonderful smoothies every morning, packed with fruits and vegetables. She said she wanted to make sure I was getting proper nutrition now that I was getting older. "You need to take care of yourself, Mom," she'd say, handing me the glass. "You're not getting any younger, and with Dad gone, I worry about you." I was touched by her concern. I'd drink the smoothie every morning without fail. But about 3 months after they moved in, I started feeling off. It began with fatigue. At first, I thought it was just age catching up with me, or maybe lingering grief. But it got worse. I'd wake up exhausted even after a full night's sleep. Some days, I could barely make it out of bed. My joints ached more than usual, and I developed this persistent headache that wouldn't go away no matter how much ibuprofen I took. Then came the nausea. I'd feel sick to my stomach throughout the day, especially in the mornings after my smoothie. I lost my appetite completely. Food tasted metallic, strange. I started losing weight 10 pounds in 3 weeks, then 15, then 20. My clothes hung off me like I was a scarecrow. My hair started falling out. Not just a few strands, clumps of it. I'd wake up to find hair all over my pillow, clogging the shower drain. Within a month, my once thick auburn hair had thinned to the point where I could see patches of scalp. The scariest part was the confusion. I'd forget what I was saying mid-sentence. I'd walk into a room and have no idea why I'd gone there. One time, I got lost driving to the grocery store I'd been shopping at for 20 years. I had to pull over and call Rebecca to come get me. "Mom, you're scaring me," she said when she found me. But I remember her eyes looked strange. Almost calculating, but I was so confused and sick that I dismissed it. I went to my primary care doctor, Dr. Stevens. She ran blood tests, checked my thyroid, my vitamin levels, everything. Some of my liver enzymes were elevated, and my white blood cell count was abnormal, but nothing conclusive. She referred me to a gastroenterologist, thinking maybe it was my digestive system. The gastroenterologist did an endoscopy. Nothing. Then a colonoscopy. Still nothing. I saw a neurologist for the confusion and memory problems. They did an MRI of my brain, looking for tumors, signs of Alzheimer's, anything. Clean. I went to an oncologist, terrified I had cancer. They did a full-body CT scan and more blood work. No cancer. 5 different specialists, dozens of tests, and no one could figure out what was wrong with me. I was deteriorating rapidly, losing more weight, getting weaker. I could barely walk from my bedroom to the bathroom without having to sit down and rest. My hands trembled so badly I couldn't hold a pen to write. Rebecca was constantly by my side, bringing me my smoothies, my medications, helping me to the bathroom. She'd hold my hand and cry, saying how scared she was of losing me. Todd would pat my shoulder and tell me to hang in there. But there was something that bothered me. Something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Rebecca had been pressuring me to update my will. She brought it up almost weekly. "Mom, you need to make sure everything's in order," she'd say. "If something happens to you, and I pray it won't, but if it does, we need to know what your wishes are. Have you thought about making me the executor? It would make things so much easier." She also kept asking about my life insurance policy. James had taken out a sizable policy years ago, $500,000. When he died, I'd gotten his payout and taken out a policy on myself for the same amount, with Rebecca as the beneficiary. "Have you checked if the policy's still active?" she'd ask. "You should call them and make sure everything's updated. You know how insurance companies can be. We want to make sure there won't be any problems." At the time, I thought she was just being practical. After all, she was my only child. Of course she'd inherit everything. But looking back now, the frequency of these conversations, the urgency in her voice, it should have raised red flags. Then one day, about 6 months into my illness, something happened that changed everything. I was lying in bed, too weak to do much of anything, when Todd walked past my open bedroom door talking on his phone. He didn't realize I could hear him. "Yeah, it shouldn't be much longer now," he was saying. "A couple more months max, then we'll be set. $500,000 plus the house, we can pay off everything and still have plenty left over." He laughed. It was a cold, cruel laugh that sent chills down my spine. Rebecca's handling it perfectly. The old lady doesn't suspect a thing. My heart stopped. The old lady. He was talking about me. I lay there in shock, my mind racing. What did he mean? A couple more months. What was Rebecca handling? And then it hit me, the life insurance. $500,000. Were they waiting for me to die? But that didn't make sense. I was dying, sure, but doctors couldn't find anything wrong with me, unless someone was making me sick. The thought was so horrible, so unthinkable, that I almost dismissed it immediately. This was my daughter, my baby girl. Rebecca would never hurt me. Would she? But as I lay there, pieces started falling into place. The smoothies that Rebecca insisted I drink every morning. How my symptoms always seemed worse after drinking them. How Rebecca had moved in right before I got sick. How she kept asking about my life insurance and will. How she cried about me getting sicker, but her eyes never looked sad. They looked impatient. No, it couldn't be. But I had to know. That night, after everyone was asleep, I forced myself out of bed. It took everything I had, my legs shook. I had to steady myself against the wall every few steps. But I made it to my desk in the study and opened my laptop. I searched. Symptoms poisoning slow. The results made my blood run cold. Arsenic poisoning. The symptoms matched mine almost exactly. Fatigue, nausea, hair loss, confusion, weight loss, gastrointestinal problems. Chronic arsenic poisoning could take months to kill someone, with symptoms that mimicked a dozen other illnesses. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. I searched for hidden camera systems. If Rebecca or Todd were doing something to me, I needed proof. I needed evidence before I could go to anyone with this. The next day, while Rebecca was out getting the kids from school, I used my credit card to order a small wireless camera system from Amazon. I selected one-day delivery and had it sent to my neighbor, Mrs. Chen's house. I told Mrs. Chen I was ordering a surprise gift for Rebecca and didn't want her to see the package. When the cameras arrived, I waited until I was alone and set them up in my bedroom, hidden in the bookshelf facing my nightstand, where Rebecca always brought my morning smoothie. The camera was so small, hidden behind some books, that you'd never see it unless you were looking for it. Then I waited. The next morning, Rebecca came in with my smoothie, just like always. I was sitting up in bed, trying to look as weak and sick as I felt. "Morning, Mom," she said with a smile. "I made your favorite blueberry and spinach. You need to drink it all, okay? You need your strength." I took the glass from her, but this time, I didn't drink it right away. I set it on my nightstand. "I'll drink it in a minute, honey," I said. "I'm feeling a little nauseous right now." "Mom, you have to drink it," she insisted, her voice taking on an edge. "You're not getting better because you're not taking care of yourself. You need the nutrients." She stood there, waiting, watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I'd never noticed before how cold her eyes could look. To avoid suspicion, I picked up the glass and took a small sip. The taste was off, I realized. There was a bitter, metallic undertone beneath the sweetness of the berries. How had I never noticed that before? I pretended to drink more, but I kept most of it in my mouth and spit it back into the glass when Rebecca looked away. When she finally left, satisfied, I poured the entire smoothie into a mason jar I'd hidden under my bed and sealed it tight. I did this for 3 more days, collecting samples. Each time, Rebecca would insist I drink the smoothie, standing there watching me until she thought I'd finished it. Each time, I'd fake it and save the liquid. But I knew I needed to catch them in the act. The camera was running, recording everything, but I needed to see with my own eyes what was happening when I wasn't in the room. On the 4th day, I told Rebecca I was feeling too nauseous to eat or drink anything that morning, and that I was going to try to sleep. She seemed frustrated but left the smoothie on my nightstand in case you feel better later. After she left, I pretended to sleep but kept my eyes slightly open, watching. I waited. About 30 minutes later, I heard the soft creak of my bedroom door. I kept my breathing slow and steady, my eyes barely slits. Through my lashes, I saw Rebecca creep into my room. She moved silently to my nightstand where the smoothie sat. She looked at me, checking if I was asleep. I forced myself to stay completely still. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small vial. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. She unscrewed the cap and carefully added several drops of clear liquid to the smoothie. She stirred it with the straw, glanced at me one more time, and then slipped out of the room. I waited until I heard her footsteps fade down the hallway. Then, I grabbed the smoothie and dumped it in another mason jar. I was shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. My daughter was poisoning me. My own child, who I'd given life to, raised, loved unconditionally, she was killing me. I sat there in my bed, in the house that felt less like home and more like a crime scene, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to be a victim. I wasn't going to let them win. I was going to fight. The next day, I called my lawyer, Martin Westbrook, someone I'd known for 20 years, someone I trusted. "Martin, I need to see you urgently," I said on the phone. "And I need you to come here. I can't leave the house." "Catherine, are you all right? You sound—" "I'll explain everything when you get here. Please, Martin, this is life or death." He came that afternoon. Rebecca was out, thankfully. I told Martin everything, the symptoms, Todd's phone call, the cameras, what I'd witnessed. I showed him the mason jars of smoothies. "My God, Catherine," he said, his face pale. "We need to call the police immediately." "Not yet," I said. "I need proof. I need the smoothies tested. I need the camera footage. Otherwise, it's just my word against theirs. And look at me, I'm a sick old woman with memory problems. They'll say I'm confused, maybe even delusional." Martin nodded slowly. "All right. I have a friend who runs a private lab. We'll get these tested immediately. In the meantime, stop drinking anything she gives you. And Catherine," he gripped my hand, "be careful. If they realize you know—" I understood what he wasn't saying. If Rebecca and Todd knew I'd figured it out, they might do something more drastic. I had to keep pretending. I had to keep playing the role of the dying mother. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. For the next week, I continued to accept Rebecca's smoothies every morning, but I didn't drink a drop. Instead, I'd pour them into containers and hide them. When Rebecca wasn't looking, I'd eat crackers and protein bars I'd stashed in my room, trying to regain some strength. And slowly, miraculously, I started to feel better. The nausea eased, the confusion lifted like a fog clearing. I was still weak. Months of poisoning had taken their toll, but I was thinking clearly again. The camera caught everything. Multiple instances of Rebecca adding drops from the vial to my smoothies, my drinks, even my soup once. I watched the footage with Martin, and I cried. I cried for the daughter I thought I had, for the grandmother who was capable of murdering her own mother for money. The lab results came back. Arsenic trioxide, highly toxic. The amount in each smoothie wasn't enough to kill me immediately, but accumulated over months, it was absolutely lethal. I'd been consuming it for nearly 7 months. The doctors said later that I was probably weeks, maybe just days, away from complete organ failure when I stopped drinking the smoothies. Martin contacted the police with the evidence. Within 24 hours, detectives came to my house. I'll never forget the moment they arrested Rebecca. She was in the kitchen making lunch when they knocked on the door. I answered it, something I hadn't been strong enough to do in months. "Mrs. Walsh?" the lead detective said. "We're looking for Rebecca Morrison." Rebecca came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. When she saw the police, her face went white. "Rebecca Morrison, you're under arrest for attempted murder," the detective said, pulling out handcuffs. "What? Mom, what's going on? What is this?" Rebecca looked at me, her eyes wide with what might have been fear, or might have been fury that her plan had failed. "I know what you've been doing," I said, my voice steady despite the tears running down my face. "I know about the arsenic. I have footage of you poisoning me. I have the smoothies tested by a lab." "It's over, Rebecca." For a moment, she said nothing. Then her face transformed into something I'd never seen before. The mask dropped. Her expression turned cold, cruel. "You should have just died like you were supposed to," she hissed as the detective cuffed her. "Do you know how long 7 months is? How exhausting it is to play the caring daughter? We needed that money, Mom. We needed it. Todd's drowning in gambling debts, $50,000 to people who don't take no for an answer. Your life insurance was our only way out. So, you decided to kill me? It's not like you were using the money for anything. You just sit in this house all alone, wasting away anyway. At least this way, your death would have meant something. It would have saved your grandchildren's future. By murdering their grandmother?" She laughed, a bitter, harsh sound. "They would have gotten over it. Kids are resilient." The detective pulled her toward the door. "Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." As they led her away, Todd came running in from the garage where he'd been hiding. He'd heard everything. He tried to run but was tackled by another officer. "This was all Rebecca's idea," Todd shouted as they cuffed him. "I didn't want to do it. She made me help her." But the evidence showed otherwise. The arsenic had been purchased on Todd's credit card from an overseas chemical supplier. Text messages between them showed they'd planned this together from the beginning. They'd specifically moved in with me to execute this plan. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented the camera footage, the lab results, the text messages, Todd's recorded phone conversation that my new security system had captured, and testimony from the doctors about my miraculous recovery once I stopped ingesting arsenic. Rebecca and Todd's defense tried to claim I was senile and had fabricated everything. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Rebecca was found guilty of attempted murder, elder abuse, and fraud. She was sentenced to 25 years in prison with no possibility of parole for the first 15. Todd was found guilty as an accessory to attempted murder and elder abuse. He got 18 years. The judge's words at sentencing are burned into my memory. "What you did to your mother," the judge said to Rebecca, "represents a betrayal of the most fundamental human bonds. You exploited her grief, her loneliness, her love for you and her grandchildren. You moved into her home under false pretenses and systematically poisoned her for months, all while pretending to care for her. The cruelty of your actions is staggering. This court hopes that your lengthy incarceration gives you time to reflect on what you've lost, not just your freedom, but your humanity." After the sentencing, I met with a therapist who specializes in family trauma. She helped me understand that I needed to grieve not just for the daughter I lost, but for the daughter I never really had. The Rebecca I thought I knew, loving, caring, devoted, had been a fiction. The real Rebecca was someone who could look into my eyes and hand me poison while telling me she loved me. As for Emma and Liam, my grandchildren, they were placed with Todd's parents. I wanted to see them, to maintain a relationship with them, but their other grandparents felt it was too traumatic. Maybe when they're older, they'll want to hear my side of the story. Maybe they won't. That's a grief I carry every day. I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore, not with the memories of what happened. I moved to a smaller condo downtown, somewhere with good security and neighbors close by. Mrs. Chen comes over for tea twice a week. Martin and his wife have me over for dinner once a month. I'm building a new life slowly. The physical effects of the poisoning have mostly faded. My hair grew back, though it's thinner and grayer now. My strength returned. The doctors say I was incredibly lucky, a few more weeks, and the damage would have been irreversible. But the emotional scars run deep. I have nightmares about drinking those smoothies, about Rebecca's face when she realized I knew. I struggle with trust. Every act of kindness from someone makes me wonder what they want from me. Still, I refuse to let what happened destroy me. Rebecca tried to kill me, and she failed. I'm alive. I'm here. I get to wake up every morning in my little condo, make my own breakfast, and decide how I want to spend my day. That's something she can't say from her prison cell. I want to share my story because elder abuse is more common than people realize. According to the National Council on Aging, approximately 1 in 10 Americans aged 60 and older have experienced some form of elder abuse. Financial exploitation by family members is particularly common, and in some cases, it escalates to physical harm or worse. If you're an older person and something feels wrong if family members are pressuring you about money, if you're experiencing unexplained health problems, if someone is isolating you from friends or other family, trust your instincts. Document everything. Tell someone you trust outside the situation. Don't wait until it's too late like I almost did. For the younger people reading this, check on your elderly parents, grandparents, neighbors. Look for warning signs, unexplained bruises, sudden changes in financial situations, withdrawal from normal activities, unusual changes in health or behavior. Don't assume everything is fine just because family is involved. Some of the worst abuse happens at the hands of the people who should be providing care. There are resources available. The National Domestic Violence Hotline has an elder abuse section. Adult Protective Services exists in every state. Local police departments have elder abuse units. You are not alone, and you don't have to suffer in silence. My name is Catherine Walsh. I'm 62 years old. My daughter tried to murder me for my life insurance money, but I'm still here. And if my story saves even one person from experiencing what I went through, then sharing this pain will have been worth it. I survived. And so can you.